Kelsey Mitchell has finally broken her silence. After months of polished interviews and generic press talk, the veteran guard of the Indiana Fever gave the kind of response that felt like a thunderclap across the WNBA. She didn't just answer a question. She delivered a truth that left fans and analysts buzzing. A statement so raw and so unfiltered that it instantly became one of the defining moments of the season. Mitchell's words weren't casual. They weren't filler. They carried the weight of someone who has lived through the darkest days of the franchise, and now sees the storm of change up close. And in her voice, in her conviction, she made it clear that Caitlin Clark is more than just a player. She is the pivot point of an era. When Mitchell spoke about Clark, she didn't do so with guarded words or forced professionalism. She said it plainly. Caitlin Clark has changed the world, changed the very dynamic of basketball. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a media headline. This wasn't an analyst trying to hype the narrative. This was the voice of a franchise cornerstone. A player who spent years dragging Indiana through the mud, admitting that everything is different now because of Clark. There was no jealousy in her tone. No bitterness, no side-eye suggestion that the attention had been stolen from her. It was the opposite. She embraced it, elevated it, and made it clear that Clark's arrival was not just welcome, but transformative. For years, Kelsey Mitchell has been Indiana's survivor. She has endured seasons so bleak that the team was a punchline, winning just 5 games in an entire year while opponents treated matchups against the Fever as rest nights. Coaches cycled in and out, systems changed, but Mitchell remained, shouldering the losses, facing the cameras, and finding ways to pretend that hope existed when there was none. Those days scarred her, shaped her, and hardened her into the player who now speaks with authority. So when she credits Clark with changing not only the franchise but the sport, those words land differently. They come from someone who knows exactly what it's like to fight through relevance. What makes her statement so powerful is that it balances humility with strength. She reminded the world that she had been there through the storm, that she laid the foundation, that her grind made it possible for this new era to exist. But she also acknowledged something greater, that, without Clark, the Fever's revival doesn't become what it is today. It was not surrender. It was leadership, the kind of perspective that elevates both the veteran and the rookie. Weaving their legacies together instead of pitting them against each other. And then Mitchell went further. She didn't just call Caitlin Clark a great teammate. She called her a friend. That one word cuts through all the noise. In professional sports, where egos and rivalries often corrode chemistry, friendship isn't a throwaway label. It's a declaration of trust, of unity, of cohesion that can't be faked. Mitchell's acknowledgement showed that Clark's integration into the team wasn't just about her talent. It was about her character. Clark didn't walk into the Fever demanding the spotlight. She walked in with open arms, with grace, with a willingness to share the stage and elevate everyone around her. Mitchell saw it, embraced it, and now she's telling the world about it. The story she shared about Clark's fine tweet reveals just how seamless this bond is. Outsiders saw a joke that sparked criticism, some calling it immature or arrogant. But inside the Fever locker room, it was pure humor. Another piece of evidence that Clark has a personality her teammates love. They laughed. They supported her. They knew her intentions. Mitchell told it with affection, with the kind of detail that only comes from genuine camaraderie. That's how you know this isn't about appearances. This is about real chemistry, the kind that builds dynasties. Because make no mistake, that's what Indiana is building right now. Mitchell, Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hold, this is the Fever's new core. And it's terrifying for the rest of the WNBA. They're not just a playoff team anymore. They're the beginning of something bigger. Mitchell even hinted that she would sacrifice her own payday if it meant keeping this roster together. An unheard of stance in modern professional sports. That's how much she believes in what they're building. She sees the writing on the wall. This team isn't temporary. This is the start of a culture shift. It's a kind of foundation that can dominate for years. Mitchell's words also strike at the heart of the league's insecurities. For months, veterans like Aja Wilson and legends like Cheryl Swoops have taken subtle or direct shots at Clark. questioning her hype, her impact, her treatment. The league itself, from officials to leadership, has often looked more interested in managing jealousy than in embracing the revolution happening before their eyes. And yet, here stands Kelsey Mitchell. It's a veteran who has every reason to feel overshadowed, openly declaring her admiration and respect. She flipped the narrative in one stroke. No bitterness, no envy, no politics. Just truth. That's what makes her words resonate so deeply. Fans are tired of the pettiness. They're tired of manufactured rivalries and bitterness disguised as competitiveness. Mitchell gave them something different: honesty. She said what fans already feel but rarely hear from inside the league. Caitlin Clark is changing everything. The sellouts, the ratings, the international buzz, it's all part of a movement bigger than one team. And instead of resisting it, Mitchell embraced it. That authenticity isn't just refreshing, it's revolutionary for the WNBA's image. But don't mistake Mitchell's respect for passivity. She is still a star in her own right, still the lethal scorer who dragged Indiana out of darkness, still the player whose grind kept the Fever relevant enough to build toward this moment. She hasn't been diminished by Clark's presence, she's been amplified. With defenses fixated on Clark in Boston, Mitchell has found her most efficient rhythm, putting up numbers that command respect and playoff moments that remind everyone she is more than a supporting piece. She is part of the engine, not an accessory. That's the brilliance of her stance. She doesn't see herself in competition with Clark. She sees herself as part of a bigger wave, a movement that validates her years of loyalty and sacrifice. For Mitchell, Clark isn't the thief of her spotlight. She's the spotlight itself, shining so brightly that it finally illuminates the foundation. Mitchell built. The bigger question now is what this means for the WNBA. Because if Indiana's core stays intact, if Mitchell's words continue to reflect the internal culture of the Fever, the rest of the league has a serious problem. You're not just dealing with talent anymore. You're dealing with chemistry, with friendship, with unity that is immune to the jealousy and resentment that so often plague super teams. That is how dynasties are born. Not from talent alone, but from the trust and authenticity that Mitchell so clearly articulated in the end. Kelsey Mitchell didn't just speak about Caitlin Clark. She spoke about the future of the league. She declared her loyalty, not to the old guard, not to the politics of envy, but to the rising tide of a new era. She made it clear that she is all in, that she believes in Clark, in Boston, in Hull, and in the Fever's destiny to rewrite history. For fans, it was more than just words. It was a manifesto, a declaration that this isn't hype, it's happening. The bottom line is simple. Kelsey Mitchell gave Caitlin Clark her flowers, not out of obligation, but out of conviction. And in doing so, she cemented herself as both the guardian of the Fever's past and the architect of its future. Together, she and Clark are not just teammates. They're allies in building something bigger than themselves, something that may one day be remembered as the dynasty that saved a franchise and reshaped the league. What do you think of Kelsey Mitchell's words? Do they mark the beginning of a true dynasty in Indiana? Or is the WNBA not ready for this kind of cultural shift? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding story. Speaking of moments, you won't want to miss what happens next.